Hey guys, tonight we slip into the twilight of myth and memory, where gods walk in sandals, owls blink with ominous purpose, and the air smells faintly of honeyed figs and old parchment. You're standing on a dusty hill just outside ancient Athens. It's sunset, or maybe sunrise. It's hard to tell because time behaves strangely here. You can just make out the Parthenon's silhouette above you, proud and serene. Wind rustles the silvery leaves of the olive trees that blanket the slopes, each one supposedly a gift from a certain goddess, who rarely loses except once. You pass under an archway carved with looping patterns and strange figures locked in eternal poses. An old priest snoozes beside a clay pot. Nobody notices you, which is perfect. You're not here to be seen. You're here to observe, to feel, to listen, as an odd little story unspools quietly with more thread than thunder. This is a tale where nobody goes to war and no one gets turned into a cow. Well, not this time. But you are about to witness a divine ego bruised harder than a dropped melon. And yes, you probably wouldn't survive if you told Athena to her face that a mortal girl weaves better than she does. Most people wouldn't even try. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from tonight and what time is it for you? Drop it in the comments if you're still awake in 5 minutes. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're strolling through the olive grove, and the trees whisper as you pass. They say this land belongs to Athena, goddess of wisdom, warcrafts, and one very memorable weaving contest. She's got a lot on her resume birthed from Zeus's skull. Don't ask strategic war planning, city naming rights. But here in Athens, her olive tree was the trump card. You see, when Poseidon and Athena both wanted this city, Poseidon offered a saltwater spring. But Athena, she gave them olives. Useful, nourishing, good for your skin and your lamp. The Athenians voted olive, and ever since then the city and the goddess have been tightly linked. You can feel her everywhere, etched on coins sculpted in marble. Her name mumbled under breath before exams and battle. Athena is brains and brawn, but she's also a stickler for respect. She's not the sort of deity who lets slights slide. She remembers, especially if your critique involves textiles. You step through a marketplace winding down for the day. Merchants pack up bolts of linen dyed with crushed snails and powdered minerals. The smell of sheep and bronze lingers. And just over there, beneath a faded awning, you spot something quietly mesmerizing, an elderly woman weaving. Her shuttle clicks like a metronome. The threads stretch taut across her loom like the strings of a silent harp. The pattern slowly emerges, stylized vines curling, animals of face here, a bird there. It's hypnotic. You sit, you watch, you try not to blink. Weaving isn't just a job in this world. It's a sacred act, a language. In every home loom, weights dangle like tiny stone ghosts. Girls are taught to spin wool as soon as they can sit upright. Cloth is currency, and if you're good enough, really good, your name travels farther than you do. And that's where she comes in. Arachne. You hear her name before you see her. Two pot-bellied traders argue about her just a few stalls down. She copied the gods, one mutters. She challenged them, the other counters, and she didn't even flinch. You edge closer, pretending to examine a clay figurine shaped like a rabbit. The traders lower their voices, but keep going. From Lydia, wasn't she little village girl, daughter of a wool dyer, I think? Spun patterns, so life like a bird once flew into the cloth. That one's probably an exaggeration, but who knows, stranger things have happened in this world. Like people being turned into trees, or cows, or spiders. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. You drift from the agora, letting the gossip trail behind you like perfume. Arachne. Arachne. The name loops through your mind like a stray thread waiting to be tied off. It's not a name the Athenians like to say too loudly. There's reverence in their tone. Yes, but also the same uneasy hush you get when someone mentions storm clouds in a tavern. She did something wrong depending on who's telling the tale. Historians still argue whether Arachne was a real person, a mythic stand-in for mortal talent, or just a way to scare kids into showing some humility. Her name lives on in science of all places. Arachnid spiders carry her story in their very classification, as if the whole animal kingdom wanted to remind us what happens when you challenge a goddess with needles and thread. But back then, in the golden dust of mythic time, Arachne was simply talented. Unbearably so. Imagine being so good at your craft that strangers walk miles to watch you work. That even the local priestesses whisper about your fingers as if they were enchanted. That your designs make gods nervous. You round a bend in the path, and the trees part just slightly, revealing a worn little workshop with ivy snaking up one side. A girl with ink-dark hair sits by a low-slung loom. Her hands move fast but precisely, and she hums a tune that doesn't match her expression. There's no joy here, only focus. The cloth unfurling beneath her fingers shimmers faintly, as if the very air is impressed. And she doesn't look up. Not when the birds chirp, not when her neighbor's goat bleats indignantly from the next courtyard, not even when a golden coin clinks nearby. She's in the flow. You know the look. It's the same one sculptors wear when they forget to eat for 2 days. The same one you've seen on bakers perfecting crusts and children building towers out of pebbles. Arachne the mortal, who didn't know when to quit. You linger in the doorway of Arachne's humble workshop. The floor is stone-worn soft by sandaled feet, and the walls are hung with scraps of practiced cloth birds, mid-flight curling vines, the occasional lion with an oddly smug expression. Light filters through a gap in the shutters, casting long stripes across the floor like oversized loom threads. The whole place hums with quiet industry. She doesn't notice you. Or maybe she does, but doesn't care. You're just one more onlooker in a long line of nosy neighbors, bored aristocrats, and passing pilgrims who've come to watch her work. And honestly, who could blame them? Arachne is young, maybe 16, maybe younger, but she weaves like someone twice her age and 3 times her patience. Her fingers move with alarming confidence. No hesitations, no do-overs. She works as if she's transcribing visions she saw in her sleep, translating dreams into thread. And in a society where even a decently made shawl can earn a family respect, Arachne's skill is practically divine. Practically. Because here's the thing, she's not divine. She's mortal, born to a wool dyer who probably thought his daughter would help run the family stall someday. Instead, she outgrew her father's craft by age 10 and started taking commissions from nobles by 12. She turned down invitations from temple priestesses, even turned down a spot in the sanctuary of Athena herself, which, as you may have guessed, is not the smartest career move. In ancient Greece, hubris isn't just bad manners, it's practically a death sentence. Boasting too loudly, claiming too much, stepping too far into the gods' spotlight. That's how you end up turned into a tree, or swallowed by the earth, or say, transformed into a many-legged creature doomed to spin silk forever. Again, not there yet. You sit on a nearby bench that's definitely older than you and probably haunted. A sleepy cat stretches beside it, watching you like it's seen this story unfold before. You watch Arachne. You listen to the rustle of fabric. The smell of sun-warmed wool and old dye pots fills the air, oddly pleasant. Comforting even. And then you hear it. Whispers. Not from Arachne, her lips are still sealed, but from the edges of the square. Passers-by. 2 women carrying baskets of figs mutter behind their hands. A boy tugging a goat on a frayed rope leans in and asks, "Is she the one who beat a goddess?" The goat sneezes. No one answers. The whispers gather speed. "Did you hear what she said?" one voice pipes up. Claimed no one, not even Athena, could match her patterns. Another huffs. Child should be weaving sandals, not defying Olympus. You glance at Arachne, half expecting her to blush or stammer or explain it was all taken out of context. But no. She just keeps weaving. Her lips twitch into something that's not quite a smile. She's heard it all before. Now you might think, okay, maybe the villagers are exaggerating. And yes, they're prone to drama. But the thing is, Arachne did make the claim. Loudly. More than once. To multiple people. Depending on the version, she may have even called Athena overrated. Which is sort of like walking into Zeus's dining hall and telling him his lightning bolt looks like a fancy hairpin. Historians still debate how much of this is legend and how much is a cautionary tale wrapped in a moral bow. But what's not debated, Arachne's fame spread fast. From Lydia to Thebes, from market stalls to royal courtyards, everyone started talking about her. Not just about the girl who could weave, but about the girl who dared to say she was better than the goddess who invented the loom. Olympus, as you might imagine, does not have a great sense of humor about that sort of thing. You wander outside, squinting at the sun as it slips behind a temple column. The streets are alive now, full of chatter, clinking amphorae, children chasing each other with sticks. But beneath the liveliness is tension. The kind of hush that slips through a town just before a thunderstorm. No lightning yet. No rain. Just a sense that something's coming. Something big. You trail behind two philosophers in dusty robes arguing loudly about whether artistic talent is a gift or a discipline. One insists Arachne is blessed by the gods, maybe even Athena herself. The other grumbles that her skill proves only that discipline, not divinity, creates excellence. Then why would the goddess be angry the first counters? Why would she care? Good question. Athena, for all her wisdom, has a bit of a temper. She's not like Dionysus, who'd laugh it off and offer you a goblet. She's not like Hermes, who'd challenge you to a prank war and probably cheat. Athena is pride in a bronze helmet, and her domain craftsmanship logic order isn't something she shares lightly. You pause by a tavern where a minstrel is already singing a song about the girl who dared. It's a terrible song full of exaggerated rhymes and a wildly inaccurate subplot involving dolphins. But the crowd loves it. One man shouts, "Sing the part where she insults the gods again." Another claps in rhythm, spilling his wine. Arachne, meanwhile, still hasn't stopped weaving. You return to the workshop just as twilight stains the sky lavender. The shutters are closed now, a faint flicker of lamplight glowing from within. The hum of the loom continues, patient and deliberate. Someone has left a basket of grapes by the door, an odd peace offering, or perhaps an apology in advance. The cat from earlier pads past you again and vanishes into the shadows. Even it seems to know the stakes have risen. Somewhere high above, the clouds begin to swirl in patterns too intricate to be natural. You wake early, or maybe you never quite slept. The air is cooler now, laced with the scent of early morning bread and something floral, maybe time, maybe trouble. Athens stretches out before you. Rooftops bathed in soft peach light. It should be peaceful. But today, even the pigeons seem unusually interested in gossip. You make your way back to the agora. The shops are still shuttered, but the people are already whispering louder, now more insistent. Someone's carved Arachne's name into a pillar. Someone else has scratched it out. You overhear an old potter muttering that her talent is a curse. His apprentice snorts and says she should open a school. Mixed reviews, clearly. The center of the agora is dominated by a cracked stone platform where philosophers, merchants, and self-declared prophets take turns declaiming. This morning, a gaunt man with wild eyes is warning that Olympus is watching. She mocks the gods, he shouts, waving a stick. We must pray for her humility. A chicken pecks at his sandal. You duck away before you're conscripted into an impromptu course of repentant townsfolk. No one needs that before breakfast. Instead, you wander down a quieter alley. A small fountain bubbles at the end of it, an old moss-crusted lion's head with olive leaves caught in its teeth. You sit. You listen. And sure enough, even here the rumors find you. She said Athena couldn't even weave a napkin. Says a passing girl, eyes wide. I heard she made a tapestry that shows the gods drunk and brawling, says her friend. My cousin says a satyr fainted just looking at it. That one feels suspect. Still, the whispers swirl, not unlike a myth being born in real time. Arachne's defiance isn't just a personal act anymore. It's a public performance. Her name is now shorthand for nerve, for daring, for possibly impending doom. And it's spreading. Word reaches the hill towns, reaches the mountain shrines, reaches inevitably Olympus, up there above the clouds where the wind smells like pine smoke and ambrosia. Athena is seated on her marble throne, combing through mortal prayers like you'd flick through a stack of mail. Requests for wisdom, requests for favorable battle outcomes, a few people still asking about that whole Gorgon head shield thing. And then, like a wine stain on parchment, comes one name over and over: Arachne. Athena frowns. It's the kind of frown that makes entire owls fall silent. She stands. Her robe shifts like a waterfall of gold. Her helm glints, and she paces. Now, this isn't the first time someone's disrespected her. Odysseus once built a horse instead of giving proper thanks. There was that sculptor who gave her statue a slightly crooked nose. And don't forget the time Hera made fun of her sandals. But this is different. This is a mortal girl, barely more than a child, declaring that she is the better weaver. To Athena, this isn't just an insult, it's a philosophical crisis. Weaving to her isn't decoration. It's sacred order. It's how the universe is constructed, patterned, precise, beautiful. When she weaves, she isn't just making cloth. She's telling the story of cosmos itself. So you can understand why someone replicating divine-level technique with sheep's wool and kitchen scraps might ruffle her feathers. If she had feathers. Which she doesn't. That's more of a Hermes thing. Historians still argue whether this was the moment Athena decided to act, or if she hesitated, waited, hoped, Arachne would back down. Some claim she sent signs. A cracked loom, a tangle of thread, a crow flying in circles. But if she did, Arachne either didn't notice or didn't care. Back in the mortal world, you pass a shrine half hidden in ivy. Someone has left a tiny piece of woven cloth beside the statue, two birds facing each other, one mortal, one divine. You don't know who made it, but you can guess what it means. And then you see it, pinned to the wooden notice board near the square, wedged between an ad for an olive-crushing service and a very optimistic marriage proposal is a scrap of parchment. Contest to be held. Athena to judge. Arachne to compete. Your eyebrows lift. So do everyone else's. Apparently, it's official now. You inch closer to a cluster of townsfolk buzzing like bees. Where will it be, someone asks. The amphitheater. The sanctuary. The marketplace stage. No one knows, but the decision's been made. The rumors weren't just smoke, they were kindling. A divine challenge has been issued. And to everyone's astonishment, including yours, Arachne accepted. She didn't apologize, didn't slink away into obscurity. She said yes, no big speeches, no dramatic proclamations. Just a nod, a straightening of her shoulders, a glance toward the loom. One woman mutters, "She's mad." Another, quieter, says, "She's brave." You're not sure who's right, but one thing is certain: the gods are paying attention. The clouds above seem heavier now, the air more charged, as if Olympus is leaning in breath, held waiting. You hear footsteps, not loud ones, measured, deliberate, echoing softly off the stone. People part like water. Some bow, some run. A figure approaches, hooded, stooped, moving like a woman far older than her bones probably are. Athena has entered the town, but not as herself. She walks like someone who has all the time in the world, which technically she does. Her cane taps with a rhythm you can't quite place, and her eyes, though hidden beneath the shadow of her hood, seem to scan everything at once. A fruit seller drops his figs. A blacksmith bows so low, he nearly faceplants into his forge. No one knows who she is. And yet somehow everyone knows. You hang back, half hidden behind a crumbling column that smells of pigeons and warm limestone. The air feels thick, like it's been woven too tightly. You know this isn't just a tired old woman. This is Athena in disguise, a classic divine move. She loves her dramatics. Remember how she helped Odysseus with a dozen secret costume changes, or how she showed up at Troy dressed like a random soldier to stir up the trouble. Today, she's gone for something less glamorous. Her tunic is rough wool unbelted. Her sandals are dusty, but her movements, they give her away. Too precise, too balanced. Even stooped, she carries herself like someone who's used to being obeyed. Athena's not here to declare war. Not yet. She's here to talk. You follow her at a respectful distance, far enough not to be noticed, close enough to catch the occasional muttered comment. She's going to scold the girl, someone whispers. Or recruit her, says another. Or turn her into a shrub, a child offers helpfully. The goddess in crone mode approaches Arachne's home. No trumpets, no glowing aura, just a quiet knock. Tap, tap, tap. Inside the loom, falls silent. Arachne opens the door. She doesn't flinch, doesn't bow, doesn't even look particularly surprised. She just stares at the old woman, one eyebrow slightly raised as if to say, "Finally." And then the oddest thing happens. Athena doesn't reveal herself, not yet. She steps inside and sits slowly, creakingly on a low bench near the hearth. Arachne offers her a cup of watered wine without being asked. There's a strange brittle civility to it, like two chess players eyeing the board before the first move. You find a crack in the wall to peek through, because eavesdropping on divine drama is better than any amphora soap opera. Athena, still in her disguise, starts with small talk. "You have a gift," she says, voice gravelly but calm. "The gods must have blessed your hands." Arachne shrugs. "No gods, just practice." Oof, even the air winces. Athena's smile twitches. "You don't believe your skill comes from the divine?" Arachne leans forward, her voice like the edge of a well-sharpened spindle. "If the gods gave me this talent, they should take credit when I fail too." That's a bold statement. Outside, the wind picks up, scattering olive leaves like nervous confetti. Historians still argue whether this moment was a test, a trap, or a final offer. Some claim Athena truly wanted to spare Arachne, warn her, coax her, give her a graceful way out. Others suggest it was all theater, a performance to justify what she already planned to do. The truth, like most myths, is probably somewhere in between. Athena stands slow and deliberate. She sets down the cup and lifts her hood. No one gasps louder than the goat tethered outside. The disguise melts away. Her robes shimmer from coarse to celestial. Her gray eyes spark like lightning behind clouds. The hearthlight flickers unnaturally, casting her face in high, stern contrast. Arachne rises too, but not out of fear. Just out of respect for the moment. Compete with me, Athena says simply. Prove your claim. The silence stretches. And then, Arachne, barely blinking, says, "Very well." And just like that, it's on. You can almost hear the chorus of dryads sighing. Outside, a crowd gathers, quiet, reverent, as if drawn by instinct. Some kneel. Some back away entirely. But no one interrupts. The looms are brought out. Side by side, two enormous wooden frames, their pegs oiled, their beams true. The sun climbs, casting long shadows as the challenge begins. Athena threads first warp and weft, appearing like magic beneath her fingers. Her technique is flawless. Every thread lies precisely in place. She weaves scenes of Olympus in glory, Zeus flinging lightning, Poseidon taming the waves, Apollo serenading the dawn with his golden lyre. Every figure radiates power, dignity, and the kind of self-satisfaction only a god can pull off. Even her corners are perfect. No tangles, no mistakes. It's less tapestry, more him. And then there's Arachne. Her fingers are quieter. She uses dyed thread reds, greens, shades so fine you swear she's painting rather than weaving. Her images are just as vivid, but the tone, oh, it's different. She doesn't show the gods in glory. She shows them in error. Zeus disguised as a swan, Poseidon chasing terrified maidens, Dionysus half asleep in a grapevine. Not grotesque, not insulting, but undeniably honest. Her weaving is a mirror held up to Olympus, and what it reflects is not entirely flattering. You can feel the crowd shift. The tension grows. A centaur snorts nervously in the distance. Athena pauses, looks over. Her eyes narrow not at the skill, she can't fault the skill, but at the message. You lean closer, heart thudding like a war drum wrapped in fleece. This weaving contest, it's no longer about skill. It's about truth. The tension in the air now feels like a drawn bowstring, stretched, taut, and trembling. You can't hear it exactly, but you feel it, a low humming pressure that makes your spine stiffen and your breath slow, as though the very fabric of the world is waiting to see who dares blink first. Athena stands beside her loom, one divine hand still poised mid-shuttle. Arachne doesn't look up. She keeps weaving. Click, pull, thread, beat. The two tapestries grow twin galaxies, spiraling in opposite directions. Athena's is stately, reverent, a temple made of thread. Arachne's is wickedly intricate, cheeky without being vulgar. There's one scene where Zeus, unmistakable with his thunderbolt and signature beard, tries to seduce a maiden disguised as a bull. Another square shows Apollo accidentally smiting a musician out of jealousy. It's not crude. It's just honest. Painfully honest. A small child in the crowd gasps. An elderly priest faints, but politely. You notice the divine tapestry now glows faintly, threads catching the sunlight in ways that feel impossible. Athena, after all, is the goddess of craft. Her work is flawless, impeccable, but there's something sterile in its perfection. It lacks the tension of truth, the mischief, the humanity. And Arachne's, it's alive. The kind of alive that makes you lean closer, makes your fingers itch to touch the threads and follow their stories. Her cloth breathed scandal and laughter and whispered, "Did you see that astonishment?" It's like sneaking into the god's diary. Athena steps back, finally finished. She smooths her tapestry with the edge of her hand, face a mask of composure. But her eyes flick again and again toward Arachne's loom. Click, pull, thread, beat, and then silence. Arachne too is done. She ties off her final thread, wipes her brow, blows gently across the fabric, stirring the tiniest shimmer of fine golden dust. She doesn't need to speak. The cloth says everything for her. For a moment, no one moves. A donkey brays loudly from a nearby stable. Bad timing. You watch Athena approach Arachne's work. Slowly, deliberately, like someone walking across a battlefield after the smoke clears. She examines the tapestry inch by inch. Her face betrays nothing, but you can almost hear the gears grinding behind those owl-gray eyes. She can't deny the talent. Even she must admit it, the detail is flawless. The composition masterful. The technique possibly better than her own. Possibly. Historians still argue about what happens next. Some say Athena flies into a rage. Others claim she remains calm, tight-lipped, and cold. A few fringe accounts say she laughed once, dryly, and whispered, "Well played." But what nearly everyone agrees on is this: Athena touches the tapestry. Just once. And the threads unravel. Not all at once, but section by section, as if the cloth itself is being undone by divine pride. The scenes blur. The colors dull. What was once a vibrant record of godly scandal now fades to ash-gray wool. The crowd gasps again, louder this time. Even the donkeys shut up. Arachne stares. Her hands twitch at her sides. Not in fear exactly. In grief. Imagine building something for days, weeks, years, your whole life really, and watching it dissolve with a single touch. She doesn't speak, doesn't beg, but her eyes, usually so sharp and steady, glaze slightly like mist gathering over a still pond. Athena straightens. "You are skilled," she says, voice echoing across the square like temple bells. "More skilled than any mortal has a right to be." She pauses. "And yet you lack reverence." Oof! Classic divine pivot. Compliment laced with reprimand. The crowd holds its collective breath. Someone sneezes and is immediately shushed. Arachne finally speaks. "I told the truth." A beat. Athena's face doesn't change, but her knuckles whiten on the edge of her loom. You can feel the moment when she decides what comes next. It's like thunder before the flash. She reaches forward, not with cruelty, but with a certain grim finality, and presses her fingers gently to Arachne's forehead. There is no lightning bolt, no scream, just transformation. Arachne gasps. Her body wavers, limbs collapsing inward. Her spine curves. Fingers twist, elongate, then split. Her voice fades to a whisper. Her skin darkens to glossy brown. Her eyes multiply, and suddenly she is small. Not crushed, not destroyed, but utterly changed. The first spider scurries from the hem of a cloak, climbing the leg of the loom and spinning even now, even in this new shape. The thread spills from her like breath. Silken, unbroken, beautiful. Athena watches, not with triumph, with something stranger. Sadness, maybe, or guilt she won't name. She shall weave forever, the goddess says, not to the crowd, but to the air itself. But no one shall rival me again. And just like that she vanishes. No thunderclap. No exit music. Just gone. The crowd begins to move slowly, like dreamers waking. Some whisper prayers. Others flee. A few linger, staring down at the tiny creature now spinning a silken circle beneath the ruined loom. You stay. Because now you know. Not just the myth, but the feeling of it. The weight of pride, the price of truth, and the strange mercy buried in punishment. You crouch beside the spider. She pauses briefly as if acknowledging you. Then spins on. You sit there for a long time watching the spider spin. The air has changed. Gone is the sharp, heady scent of divine tension. Now it smells of crushed olive leaves, warm dust, and whatever subtle magic lives inside a strand of silk. Arachne, if you can still call her that, moves with careful grace. She's smaller now, sure, but not diminished. Her legs work with the same instinctive rhythm her fingers once knew, over under twist pull. It's almost peaceful. Almost. You glance around the empty square. The crowd's gone, the dust settling. The looms stand abandoned, one glowing faintly, the other smudged with ash. A few petals drift from a nearby tree, landing gently on the wooden beams. You half expect Athena to reappear and sweep everything away with a clap of thunder. But no, she's done her part. The punishment has been handed down. And Arachne still weaving. Back in the day, people might have called that justice. But now, sitting here beside her, you can't quite tell whether it was mercy or cruelty. The spider pauses, legs trembling slightly, and then resumes her spiral. As if to say, it doesn't matter what they call it. I'm still here. A goat bleats somewhere in the distance. Because of course. You decide to explore. The town feels different in the aftermath. Not physically, everything's still in its place, but the people you pass have new tension in their steps. A group of weavers stand by, a well speaking in hushed tones. You catch a few words: pride, punishment, blessing, and something about not using purple dye anymore, as if color might be contagious. You duck into a shaded courtyard where an old man is winding thread around a frame. He nods at you but doesn't speak. Instead, he gestures toward the cloth he's working on. A single motif repeats over and over: 8 legs, a spinning wheel, a circle within a circle. You nod in return. No words needed. The story is spreading. Quickly. The tale of Arachne isn't just a myth anymore. It's already becoming a moral, a parable, a cautionary whisper that will echo in hallways and sanctuaries for generations. Young girls will be taught not to boast. Weavers will cross themselves when the wind stirs their threads. Someone will write it down on parchment, and that parchment will survive longer than the cloth ever did. And yet you wonder how many of them will remember the truth of her weaving. You find yourself near the Acropolis again. Higher ground, where you can see the curve of the coastline far off in the haze. The sky is soft blue now, clouds skimming low, like wool teased too thin. Somewhere below, in a quiet tree-shaded courtyard, a spider is threading her story into the air. Let's rewind a little. To the beginning of the contest. Not what they wove, but how. Both tapestries, for all their differences, shared one thing: silence. No music, no commentary, no grand declarations. Just the quiet click of shuttles, the low rustle of thread. A rhythm, a pulse, like breath. And in that breath, something was spoken. Not in words, but in craft. Historians still debate whether Arachne wove from defiance or devotion. Was her tapestry a slap in the gods' faces, or a plea for them to see themselves more clearly? The line between protest and prayer can get fuzzy, especially when told through metaphor and wool. But what's clear is this: she didn't hold back, even knowing the risk. Even with the weight of Olympus breathing down her neck, there's a strange nobility in that. Not arrogance, not recklessness, just clarity. She had to tell the story, and maybe, just maybe, Athena understood that. After all, the goddess didn't obliterate her, didn't cast her into Tartarus or turn her into stone. She changed her, but let her continue. From fingers to legs, from loom to web, still weaving. You pass by a temple where the marble reliefs now seem to shimmer differently. One shows Athena's birth, springing fully grown from Zeus's head, armor clanking, eyes fierce. Another shows her inventing the loom. Yet another, newer, rougher, shows a small spider on a branch, its threads gleaming like starlight. You smile. Even Olympus can't stop the mortal world from remembering what it wants to. A child runs past you, giggling, a trail of wool behind her like a comet tail. Her mother scolds her gently in a language that blends blessing and threat. "You'll end up like Arachne," she mutters. The child just laughs and keeps running. You follow the path down to a stream where a group of women are dyeing cloth. One of them, barefoot arms splashed with purple, nods toward the sky. "Did you see the clouds during the contest?" she asks. "Shaped like looms. I swear it." Another woman adds, "My sister says spiders are sacred now. She won't squash one even if it lands in her soup." A third shrugs. "They were always sacred. We just forgot why." And that, perhaps, is the quiet victory Arachne claimed. She wove truth into a world of stories. And even though her hands are now legs, and her loom is now branch and silk, her truth lives on. You find her again as the sun begins to dip. She's built a new web higher now, tucked into the crook of an old olive tree. The silk glows golden in the light. You watch as she moves, efficient and calm, no sign of fear or fury. Only rhythm. Click, pull, thread, beat. You sit beneath the tree, back against the bark, and close your eyes. You can almost hear her humming. A soft breeze drifts through the olive branches overhead, stirring their pale silvery leaves until they seem to whisper to each other. You sit beneath the tree, the earth warm and faintly chalky against your palms, as Arachne's delicate web shimmers above. She's still moving, still weaving with that quiet, deliberate motion that's both eerie and oddly soothing. 8 legs trace a spiral older than memory, as though she's not spinning a web but time itself. And you begin to notice something strange. Other spiders. Not many, just a few tucked into eaves and nestled in corners. Small, nimble, silent companions, They hang like droplets of ink against the stone, each one turning twisting, shaping the air into lace. You wonder if they're her children, or disciples, or simply echoes. One clings to a fig branch, its web dotted with dewdrops that catch the light like pearls. Another waits in a narrow crack between two tiles, so still you almost mistake it for a fleck of ash. The patterns vary, some round and precise, others chaotic, tangled, almost experimental. But all are purposeful. All speak in that same wordless language Arachne once whispered through wool and dye. You wander the town now, eyes newly attuned. You see webs everywhere. Not in pestilent clusters or horror movie corners, but tucked gently into forgotten places. Between pottery jars, in the slats of sun-warped shutters, in the hollow handles of abandoned looms. And every time the pattern repeats, spin, rest, repair. Spin, rest, repair. A rhythm older than Athena. A rhythm that survives. You duck into a tiny workshop near the edge of the village, expecting dust and quiet. Instead, you find an elderly woman hunched over a spindle, murmuring to herself. Her cloth is fine, not Arachne fine, but meticulous. Her fingers tremble, but not with age. With effort, with care. She looks up, sees you, nods once. I saw her, she says, voice like a creased parchment, when I was a girl, before the change. You blink. She sat right there, the woman continues, pointing to a cracked wooden stool. Wove a rose so real, I tried to smell it. You sit beside her. She wasn't arrogant, she adds. She was full, brimming, like a pot left too long on the fire. The weaving had to come out. You nod, unsure if she's speaking metaphorically, or if in this town, metaphors are just second-hand facts. Historians still puzzle over Arachne's legacy. Some say she was a victim of divine vanity. Others call her a symbol of mortal hubris. A few fringe thinkers, usually scribbling notes with ink-stained fingers and loose sandals, believe she was a prophet. A voice from below daring to point upward and say, "You're not perfect, and that's okay." But it's the spiders who remember her best. You leave the workshop and follow a back alley lined with overgrown herbs and crumbling statues. A small amphora lies tipped on its side, half buried in soil. Inside it, a tiny web stretches across the hollow, vibrating faintly with the wind. You resist the urge to poke it. Instead, you whisper, "Well done," and move on. You pass a temple courtyard where a statue of Athena looms tall, spear-raised, face stern. Beneath her sandals, a cluster of tiny webs glint like halos. The priest sweeping the steps either hasn't noticed or has decided not to interfere. Smart man. As dusk thickens, the town seems to exhale. Torches flicker to life. Bread bakes. Laughter returns to the taverns, though it's softer now, less rowdy. You wander back to the agora where the contest unfolded. The looms are gone, but the square holds a memory in its stones. You can feel it just beneath your soles, the heat of pride, the shock of beauty, the electric hush of realization. It wasn't about winning. Not really. Arachne never gloated, never claimed her tapestry was better. She just let it speak. And the truth it told, awkward, shimmering, bold, was the kind gods don't usually like to hear. But still, Athena didn't destroy her. She changed her. And even now, that change continues to ripple. You rest on a stone bench, cool under your legs, and close your eyes. The sounds of the town fade to soft murmurs, sandals against flagstones, the crackle of an oil lamp, the flit of wings overhead. And in your mind, the image returns. Arachne human once more sitting at her loom. Not angry, not afraid, just weaving. Because when all the arguing fades, all the punishment settles, all the myths are rewritten into cautionary tales, she's still doing what she loves, what she must do. Create. In the dark corner of the bench, a small spider begins spinning. You watch her work for a moment, careful, confident, quiet. You smile. No thunder, no lectures, just threads spiraling outward. Morning again, though the light feels different now, less golden, more silvered, as though some gentle fog has settled over the town, softening its outlines and muffling its gossip. You stretch, roll your shoulders, and find yourself instinctively checking the corners of your clothing for webbing. None yet. But you know better now. They're around you. Always. Arachne's presence spun into the edges of things. You make your way toward the grove at the town's edge, where the olive trees sway, like old philosophers debating silently in the breeze. Their gnarled branches twist and lean, their leaves whisper in a language older than the temples. You pass under them slowly, reverently. You're not here for fruit. You're here for memory. Because this is where it happened, where the first web was spun. The hollow of the tree still holds it Arachne's earliest silk masterpiece, not so much woven as grown. The threads stretch delicately between bark and air, anchored in the folds of the tree, like secrets between pages. And even though it's faded, slightly dampened by dew and time, it still holds its shape. A perfect spiral, balanced, silent waiting. You kneel to observe it more closely. Not to touch it, no. That would be a crime. Just to study it, to understand how something so fragile could be stronger than shame. A single strand of silk thinner than breath, able to carry an entire myth forward through time. She didn't stop. That's what matters. You sit under the tree, your back against its thick trunk, and try to picture her transformation. Not the moment of change, but the quiet afterward. The acceptance. The first cautious step with 8 new legs. The terrifying instinct to spin. To make. Did she grieve? Did she mourn her fingers, her voice, her old name? Or did she simply begin again? Historians still muse on the nature of her transformation. Was it punishment or evolution? Did Athena curse her or set her free? Some say the goddess left Arachne with enough of her mind intact as a warning. Remember what defiance costs. Others believe it was a gift in disguise, a way to let her art live on unchallenged, uninterrupted. Either way, Arachne became the mother of 1,000 weavers, none of them human, all of them tireless. And over time, those spiders earned their place in myths of their own. In some cultures, they're lucky. In others, omens. In folklore from Africa to the Americas, the spider becomes more than animal. She becomes trickster, storyteller, god. Anansi, Iktomi, Tsuchigumo. It's as if the spirit of Arachne unspooled across the globe, taking root wherever thread meets story. Her legacy transcends Olympus, trickles past Greece, and weaves itself into every culture that's ever paused to wonder how something so small can make something so complex. You think of spider silk now, not just as nature's net, but as a metaphor, an act of quiet rebellion. While gods strike thunder and mortals wage war, the spider spins. Patient, unseen, relentless. You leave the grove and walk toward the shoreline. The town stretches lazily behind you, now rooftops sloping like folded parchment. The sea is close enough to smell briny, sharp, rich with possibilities. You wander down a winding path carved between stones until you reach a rocky cove. Tucked between 2 cliffs, it's hidden from view, a place only spiders and dreamers seem to find. And there, hanging from the cliff face, is a web unlike any you've seen. Larger, older, strung across the rocks like a harp waiting for wind to play it. It's empty now, no spider in sight. But it hums faintly when the sea breeze threads through it, and for a moment you imagine Arachne herself sitting in the shadows watching, not with bitterness, but with quiet pride. You sit again. How many times have you sat now and let the sound of waves mix with the memory of thread? You feel them merging water and web myth and material punishment and purpose. The lines blur. Everything softens. And just when you think the story has finished weaving itself, you hear a voice. Not spoken aloud. Not a divine trumpet or temple echo. Just a whisper. Thread-like. Faint. She didn't lose. She transformed. You smile. Because that too is a kind of victory. You lie back on the sun-warmed stone, the cove cupping you like a bowl. A spider crawls along a crack in the rock beside your hand, pausing to look at you, or maybe just rest. You don't flinch. You just watch. And in the silence between waves, you begin to hum. A low, slow rhythm. One you've heard before. One that goes click-pull, thread beat. The sun shifts overhead, sliding behind a cloud shaped suspiciously like a curled olive leaf. You blink up at the sky, squinting as light dances on the water's edge. The gentle shh of the waves is joined by a soft rustle. No, not leaves this time. Silk. You sit up slowly, your limbs heavy like woven flax. The spider is gone. The web on the cliff face trembles once more, and then stills, as if acknowledging the moment, then moving on. You trace the path back toward the village, your thoughts caught in their own web. The story has started to loop in your mind now, not as a straight line, but as a spiral. Arachne weaves. She is punished. She transforms. And then, what? She continues. That's the part no one seems to write down. The most human part of all. You pass a group of children chasing each other through narrow alleys, kicking a ball made from bundled rags. One of them suddenly stops and points to a spider spinning near a shutter. That's her, the child whispers wide-eyed. That's the weaving girl. The others nod solemnly. One tosses a crumb reverently. Another waves just in case the spider sees. You smile. Word travels fast. Myth even faster. Nearby, a young woman crouches beside her loom, threading pale green wool through a pattern that looks suspiciously like a set of spirals. You pause behind her. She doesn't look up, but she speaks, softly. My grandmother says if you whisper a secret while weaving the cloth, remembers it. You murmur. And what do you think? She shrugs, but smiles. I think the goddess made her a spider so she could listen to all our stories, an interpretation Athena might not approve of, but one you suspect would have made Arachne chuckle, maybe even snort. You keep walking. In a sleepy courtyard, a temple scribe sits beneath an overhanging grapevine carefully ink-scrolling on a long parchment scroll. You see what he's writing. Myths, names, lineages. Apollo, Persephone, Heracles. And then at the bottom of the page, almost squeezed in like a postscript, Arachne. One word. No context. You lean closer. Why just her name, you ask? He glances up. No one agrees on the details. So I write what I can. But you believe it, you press. The scribe dips his brush again. I've seen the webs. That's enough for me. You thank him and move on. At this point, it's clear that the story has outgrown Olympus's version. The villagers are adding their own interpretations, their own little variations. In one retelling, Arachne escaped before Athena could transform her. In another, the goddess regrets her decision and watches over spiders now guiding their webs in secret. And in the most charming one, you hear a boy breathlessly tells it behind a basket stall. Arachne made a tapestry so lovely it convinced Hades to let her visit her loom once a year. You raise an eyebrow at that one. That's Persephone, you say. He shrugs. Maybe they share a ride. You can't argue with myth logic. You wander uphill toward a small stone shrine tucked in a patch of thistles. No grand marble columns here. Just a cairn of rounded rocks stacked carefully by hand. At the center, someone's carved a spider into the largest stone, simple, precise, unmistakable. Offerings lie at its base. Thread, needles, a tiny piece of golden silk. You kneel not to pray exactly, but to witness, to remember. And as you sit, the light filtering through the olive trees above shifts and flutters, casting shadows that look uncannily like patterns on a loom. Crosshatches, spirals, petals, even a pair of wings if you squint just right. You lean back, palms pressed into the dirt, and let the warmth soak into your bones. A lizard scurries past. Somewhere in the distance, a sheep bleats with theatrical annoyance. The world continues unbothered. Because while gods rage and mortals transform, looms still click, threads still cross, webs still spin, and you begin to wonder, not for the first time, if the whole world is just one giant tapestry, woven by who knows what, finished by no one. Tug one thread in Athens and another in Delphi shivers. You sit in the silence, letting that idea settle, letting it stretch. The breeze shifts. A spider drops gently down from a leaf above you, hanging by a single silver thread. She dangles there, swaying slightly in the wind, and for a moment you think she's looking at you. You smile. She doesn't wave back, she's far too dignified for that. But she climbs her thread with elegant calm, vanishing into the shade. She doesn't need applause. She just needs the space to weave. You rise slowly, brushing dirt from your palms, and head downhill as the shadows lengthen. The cobbled path beneath your feet is uneven, worn smooth in places by centuries of sandals, hooves, and perhaps a few Olympians in disguise. It leads you to a covered archway where someone has painted in faded ochre the image of a loom, lines and pegs simplified into something symbolic. And in one corner, a spider, barely more than a dot, but unmistakably present. The myth, it seems, has crept into the cracks. You pause in a quiet plaza where artisans work quietly, potters shaping smooth bowls, a woman tying knots into fishing nets, a boy carving decorative spirals into a walking stick. No one speaks much. The air is full of the kind of focus that only comes from long hours and skilled hands. You watch the net weaver for a moment, Her fingers move with mechanical precision, loop after loop, until the pattern emerges a lattice that will never be noticed by the fish, but means everything to the ones who eat them. Every knot's a story, she says, without looking up. Catch enough of them and you feed a village. You nod. There's a rhythm here too. One not unlike weaving, or storytelling, or breathing. Click, pull, thread, beat. Further down near the base of the hill, you pass a column where someone has scratched a phrase in the stone. She wove the gods too clearly. No attribution. No punctuation. Just the statement carved as if it were a fact. You touch the words briefly with your fingers. Cool stone. Sharp grooves. A quiet reminder that clarity is often dangerous, especially when directed at power. Athena's name still echoes across the town, but it's changed. Some speak it with awe, others with caution. She punished truth someone whispers near a well. She spared her, another insists. She taught her a lesson, says a third. But beneath all the interpretations, something curious has started to emerge. Pity, not for Arachne, for Athena. Because in her need to maintain order, to defend divinity, to silence defiance, she may have lost something too. You find a shrine dedicated to her, not far from the town gates. Statues, olive branches, bronze offerings. It's quiet here, reverent. But there's a new addition, small, discreet, half hidden behind a potted herb. A tiny spindle carved from ivory, resting beside a fragment of silk. You recognize the pattern immediately. Arachne's spiral. You wonder if the priest noticed, or if it was left by a worshipper trying to reconcile both sides of the story. Because here's the truth, they're not opposites. Arachne and Athena, they're reflections. Skill and discipline, pride and passion. One divine, one human. But both driven by the same thing, the need to create. Historians still debate whether Athena's punishment was just, but they rarely ask what the goddess felt. Did she admire Arachne even as she struck her down? Did she regret it afterward? Or was she simply afraid of what happens when mortals see the gods for what they are? You circle the shrine once more, then wander toward the olive press where farmers gather to exchange baskets, rumors, and the occasional recipe. One of them, an older man with hands like cracked leather, sees you watching a spider crawl across his press. Don't kill her, he says automatically. She keeps the olives safe. You raise an eyebrow. Eats the flies, he clarifies, smiling slightly. And she's lucky. Because of Arachne, you ask. Because of truth, he says, and walks away. You sit by the press for a while, letting that word settle. Truth. The thing Arachne wove into her tapestry. The thing that burned brighter than Athena's lightning. The thing that made everyone so uncomfortable. Because truth doesn't ask permission. It just is. And like spider silk, it's stronger than it looks. You glance upward where the branches of a fig tree stretch toward the darkening sky. Another web glimmers there, catching the last of the light. You don't need to see the spider. You know she's there. Watching. Spinning. Patient. The village bell rings in the distance, signaling evening prayers. A group of acolytes pass you in white linen, murmuring hymns. One of them has a woven belt around her waist, embroidered with tiny symbols. You recognize a few stars, vines, an owl, and at the very end, almost tucked beneath the edge, 8 little legs. You follow them for a while, the night settling around you like a soft shawl. Torches flicker in the doorways. A flute plays somewhere nearby. And above in the sky, the stars begin to shimmer through the olive canopy. Tiny lights scattered like spilled thread across a tapestry far greater than anything on earth. You lie back on a grassy patch just outside town arms, folded behind your head, and trace constellations with your eyes. You half expect to find one shaped like a spider. Maybe she's up there already, her legs stretching from Orion's belt to the curl of Cassiopeia's chair. If she isn't yet, she should be. Because this isn't just a tale of punishment anymore. It's a story about what survives. The weaving, the legacy, the truth. A story that, despite divine effort, continues to spread. One thread at a time. The moon is high now, casting everything in gentle silver. You've drifted farther than you meant to pass the last courtyard lantern beyond the hum of sleepy conversation into the outskirts of the town where the walls give way to fields and fig orchards. The grass is cool beneath your sandals, the soil softly crumbling, rich with the scent of olives, wild thyme, and earth that has seen centuries. There, nestled against the base of an old cypress, you spot another web. This one's large and oddly perfect. It stretches between 2 low branches, its pattern crisp and symmetrical, catching moonlight like it was made of polished glass. And there she is, motionless at its center. The spider, Arachne. You're not sure. but she feels watchful. You sit nearby, careful not to disturb anything, and study the spiral. It looks less like a trap and more like a record. As if each loop and line holds a moment from the story, the look on Athena's face, the hush of the crowd, the last quiet breath before transformation. You wonder if that's what spiders really do. Not just hunt, not just nest. Remember, you lie back folding your arms behind your head. The night sky seems woven too now that you think about it. Stars like knots, constellations like patterns. Orion's belt stretched taut, Andromeda tangled in myth. You smile at the thought. Arachne would have appreciated the irony. The gods tossed her aside, but now she's everywhere, hidden in plain sight, impossible to ignore. Even the gods can't escape symbolism forever. Down below in the town you've left behind, things are shifting. Not dramatically. Quietly. You hear stories being retold in the taverns where the wine flows thicker as the night goes on. This time, Arachne isn't painted as arrogant. She's clever, brave, determined. She becomes a heroine in whispers. Did you hear she didn't even blink when Athena showed up, someone says. She didn't flinch, another agrees. Not even when the gods themselves were watching. The tone's changed. It's not mockery anymore. It's awe. Historians still argue about how long the weaving contest lasted. Some say an hour. Others claim it stretched over 3 days and nights. No rest, no water, just pure focused creation. One fringe theory even suggests it didn't happen in normal time at all, that the contest took place in a pocket of suspended reality, where art outranked chronology. You like that one. Back beneath the cypress, you notice a caterpillar inching along a blade of grass, oblivious to the web above. You watch it move slow and intent. Then, without ceremony, it disappears into the folds of a leaf. Another kind of transformation. The world is full of them, you realize. Unremarkable, until you look closely. You get up and stretch, bones creaking faintly in the chill. The night hums with life. Crickets, owls, distant footfalls. There's something ancient in the dark, but not frightening. Familiar. Like the feeling of an old quilt, stitched from countless pieces, worn at the edges. Precious. You walk back toward town. The spider stays behind. At the edge of the village, a group of older women are gathered by a fire pit, weaving baskets. Not cloth, this time rushes and reeds, pliable and fragrant. Their hands move in time, no chatter, no fuss. You watch for a moment before one of them gestures for you to sit. They don't ask who you are. They don't explain what they're doing. They just keep weaving. The baskets take shape slowly, their patterns functional but subtly elegant. As the fire crackles, one woman leans toward you and says softly, "You know they say Athena watches from the stars now. But the spiders, they watch from under your table." You smile. It's not a warning. It's a reminder that divine judgment is lofty but earthly presence that stays close. You leave them with a nod and continue wandering, drawn by a rhythm you can't quite place. Your feet carry you back toward Arachne's old workshop. It's empty, now closed, forgotten shutters sagging slightly. But in the corner, high near the roof beam, a delicate web clings to the frame. And in the center, not a spider, a tapestry. Tiny. Impossible. Woven from silk so fine it could unravel at a breath. But it's there. A scene of 2 women side by side. One in armor, one in a simple tunic. No weapons. No fire. Just looms. They're weaving together. You blink, it's gone. Or maybe it never was. You lean against the doorway, letting the moment stretch. A breeze stirs the dust inside. It smells like wool and dye and sun-warmed wood. The air shimmers with memory. And still somewhere above you know the threads are being pulled. Not by fate necessarily, but by hands, however many legs they may have, that refuse to stop weaving. The next morning arrives without fanfare. The sun glides upward like it's been doing this forever, because it has. But you're moving slower. Now, dreamier. Caught in that liminal place between waking and still dreaming about spiders with a point to prove. You stretch as you cross back into the agora. The market stalls are starting to open, groaning under the weight of ripe figs, barley cakes, and a few questionable amphorae of fermented fish sauce. Normal life hums back into gear. But you can feel it beneath the routine. Something's shifted. Arachne is in the air. and in the shadows, and on the tongues of people who now speak her name with a curious mix of awe-sympathy and pride. You find yourself drifting toward a familiar square, a quiet one near the dying vats. There's a fresh wall mural painted in ochre and deep blue. It's subtle, abstract. Spirals intertwining, tapering into a set of fine lines that stretch into 8 tiny legs. No signature, but you know who it's for and who it's from. Art begets art. You take a seat on a low step and watch a group of students, probably 10 or 11 years old, being led through the market by a harried tutor who definitely hasn't had enough olives this morning. One of the girls tugs his sleeve. "What's the story of the Spider Woman?" she asks. He sighs the sigh of someone who has explained the same myth for 15 years. A mortal woman. Talented, yes, but arrogant. Challenged the gods. Lost. But then another child pipes up. Did she really lose, though? A pause. You watch the tutor blink, adjust his sash. That, he says carefully, depends on who's telling the story. Exactly. Historians still puzzle over how myths mutate over time. Once Arachne's tale was a morality lesson, know your place, mortals. Then it became a warning, don't challenge the gods. And now, it's evolving, again, becoming something new. A tale of persistence, of craft, of truth told plainly, even when it stings. You walk past a stall selling rough-woven cloaks. The merchant winks at you and says, "Spider-proof, guaranteed." You keep walking. At the bathhouse, someone has carved a little spider above the steam vent. At the fishmonger's, a dangling web gently waves between 2 jars of pickled squid. One customer, clearly unnerved, tries to swat it down. The fishmonger stops him with a glance. "She's part of the place now," he mutters. "Respect." You nod. That's what it is. Respect. Not fear. Not shame. Just quiet acknowledgement that this town is woven together by more than stone and mortar. It's stitched with stories. And hers runs through all of it. You find yourself near the school next, where children are practicing basic weaving on wooden frames. A patient teacher corrects posture and praises neat rows. You watch them work. Their tongues poke from the corners of their mouths. Their brows are furrowed with concentration. But then one girl starts to improvise. Instead of a simple grid, she curves her threads, loops them into petals, twists them in ways the pattern book doesn't suggest. The teacher starts to intervene, then stops. Watches, tilts her head, smiles. Sometimes defiance looks like a new stitch. You glance down at your own hands, fingers stained faintly with olive bark, dirt beneath your nails. No loom, no thread, but still, somehow you feel the urge to make something. A braid, a song, a story. Arachne's real power, it turns out, wasn't her skill. It was her need to express something true. And that's contagious. You pass by a woman kneading dough for flatbread. She hums softly an old weaving song turned baking chant. Over, under, twist and turn, what you weave the gods shall learn. The flour puffs around her like fog. She pats a spider gently off the table's edge and continues. Back near the edge of town, you find an old shepherd napping under a fig tree. His staff leans against a rock. A web stretches from its top to the branch above. A single dewdrop hangs from the center. Balanced. Calm. Perfect. You sit down nearby and let your head rest against the bark. The earth breathes beneath you. Your heartbeat settles into that familiar rhythm. Click. Pull. Thread. Beat. You close your eyes. In the dark behind your eyelids, you see her not as a spider. Now, not quite, but as a young woman again. Sitting at her loom. The thread moving faster and faster. Her hair caught by the breeze. Her eyes alight not with pride, not with rebellion, but with something gentler. Purpose. The loom fades. The cloth dissolves, but the feeling stays. You open your eyes to twilight, the sky ripened into soft bruises of lavender and pink. A goat bell chimes in the distance, as if on cue. The shepherd under the fig tree hasn't moved. You suspect he might be more stone than man by now? A spider dangles lazily from a fig leaf above his head, as if standing guard. You rise again, walking slowly through the dusky lanes. The village is shifting into evening mode, lanterns being lit with small pops of oil. Sandals scuffing over cobblestones. Voices lowering as hearts are stoked. From a nearby window comes the warm clack of a loom. You stop. Inside, an elderly woman weaves alone. Her hands are thin, but sure, threading yarn the color of dusk through pale, warped threads. Her loom groans slightly with age. A half-finished pattern takes shape, arcs, and curls that form a familiar spiral. She doesn't look up, but her lips move. She spun for truth, she murmurs. That's why it scared them. She continues working, not needing an audience, not needing anything except the cloth and her own steady rhythm. You step back from the window, not wanting to intrude on what feels like prayer. You've walked most of the village by now, but as night gathers, you find yourself drawn not to the temples, not to the agora, but to the edges. The quiet spaces where spiders thrive and stories linger, forgotten walls, cracked urns, fence posts, garden sheds. In one such shed, you find a curious object. It's a tapestry, small and frayed, pinned above a shelf of broken tools. At first glance, it seems simple, just rows of color, nothing fancy. But look closer and you see it. Spirals hidden in repetition, a flower blooming where none should be. A figure at a loom, her back turned but shoulders set. Arachne. You run your fingers just above the thread, not touching but hovering. The air feels warmer there, like the memory of hands. Someone wove this. Someone remembered. You turn and find a girl watching you from the doorway. She's young, maybe 10, maybe younger, and holds a ball of rough twine under one arm. Did she really turn into a spider? She asks. You pause. Yes, you say. But she never stopped weaving. The girl considers this. Do you think she's still out there? You glance toward the dark corner of the shed. A thread stretches from beam to beam, trembling slightly. She never left, you say. The girl nods, like this makes perfect sense. Good, she says. Spiders are better than gods anyway. You snort softly. Kids, they always say the things grown-ups are too careful to. You leave her to her twine and step back out into the blue-tinted evening. The streets are emptier now and softer. The town feels wrapped in its own blanket of dusk, stitched tight with sounds, night insects, distant lyre music, the occasional muffled laughter. And behind it, all that pulse. Click, pull, thread, beat. You follow it. It leads you to a carved gate near the southern hill, a place you haven't explored yet. The gate is plain, but adorned with a strange sigil, half owl, half spiral. No one guards it. No one warns you away. So you step through. Beyond it, a garden. Untamed, lush, unruly in the most glorious way. Ivy runs wild along the walls. Wildflowers burst from old clay pots. The paths are crooked, tangled like thought. And overhead, strung between branches, are webs. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Some are fresh wet with dew, even at night. Others are faded, hanging like old dreams. A few glimmer with embedded petal seeds, even the occasional lost earring. You walk slowly beneath them, mouth parted in quiet awe. This is no trap. This is a gallery. Arachne's work, or those inspired by her. Spiders, it seems, have kept the gallery alive long after people forgot it. You hear the occasional twitch of thread, the dry rasp of legs moving silk. But mostly it's silent. A sacred silence. You pause in front of one particularly elaborate web. It spirals outward, but the threads loop unpredictably, unexpected corners, fractal repeats. It looks chaotic at first, but the longer you stare, the more sense it makes. It's not disorder. It's complexity. The kind mortals once feared. Athena might have hated this one. Or maybe admired it. Historians still argue whether the goddess ever returned here to see what had become of Arachne's legacy. Some say yes, that she came in secret, veiled and quiet, to see if the weaving continued. Others say she never looked back. But here, under these webs, you suspect she knows that in trying to suppress the mortal voice, she unintentionally preserved it, immortalized it, empowered others to speak truth through cloth thread web. You step through the garden until the paths end at a low stone wall. From here, the hill slopes down into farmland, olive groves curling beneath the moonlight. You sit, as you always seem to do, and feel the weight of the day slip off your shoulders like a shawl. In the shadows nearby, a spider begins a new web. No fanfare, no audience, just the work. And you realize now that's the true act of defiance. Not the boasting, not the contest, but the persistence. To keep creating, to spin beauty where none is expected. To tell the story again and again, even when no one listens, or especially when they don't. The night deepens around you like a well-worn cloak. Stars overhead, burn a little brighter now, as if someone polished them. Crickets sing in a rhythm that, if you listen closely, almost matches that familiar cadence. Click-pull, thread beat. Everything seems to participate in the weaving, even time itself. You stand from the garden wall, slowly, not wanting to disturb the spiders at work, their silhouettes barely visible in the starlight. The threads stretch across branches like whispered secrets. You move through them, carefully ducking when needed, as if walking through a sacred text written in silk. Outside the gate, the town feels even quieter. The olive groves to the north rustle softly, their silver leaves flickering like tiny mirrors. A few lamps still flicker in windows. Somewhere a baby cries, quickly soothed. Someone laughs behind a door. A dog gives a half-hearted bark, then promptly regrets the energy spent. But most of the world sleeps. And in that sleep they dream. And in that dreaming they remember. You walk with no destination, now only intention to see what remains, what lingers, what has been changed by the telling of this one small peculiar tale. You find yourself back at the base of the Acropolis, looking up at the looming silhouette of Athena's temple. It's grand, impressive, unshakable. A testament to order, logic, strategy, strength. Everything Arachne wasn't, and yet somehow was. You walk its perimeter, not to go inside but to look closer. There, etched into a cornerstone near the rear, small enough that you'd miss it without looking, as a spiral. Not official, not sanctioned, scratched by a finger or a nail. It's not part of the original design, but it's there. And that means something. Even here where Athena reigns supreme, Arachne has left her mark. You sit on the cool stone steps of the outer wall, gazing at the temple columns rising like ribs toward the night. They frame the stars perfectly, and suddenly you wonder, do the gods ever look down and see the tiny stories unfolding between their temples? Do they notice the spiders? Do they remember historians still debate what myths are for? Are they tools of control? Entertainment? Coded histories? But maybe, just maybe, they're memory keepers. They remind us of who we've been, who we feared, who we dared to admire. And Arachne, for all her audacity, remains impossible to forget. You hear footsteps approach, soft-measured. You turn, expecting a villager, but no one's there. Only the wind. Or maybe a goddess. You look up at the statue of Athena atop the temple. Her stone spear gleams in the moonlight. Her helmet is perfect, imposing. She looks down, not at you, but past you, always watching the horizon. But what if she remembers too? What if she regrets? The myths never say. The gods rarely admit fault. But that doesn't mean they don't feel it. You rise and start walking again, this time toward the edge of the village where the olive groves meet the river. The air is cooler, here, carrying with it the scent of water moss and the rich soil that feeds both trees and stories. Fireflies blink lazily in the brush. You pause on a wooden footbridge, the boards creaking beneath your weight. You look down. In the corner of the bridge's railing, barely visible unless you're seeking it, is a web. Simple, small, lopsided, but earnest. You sit on the railing legs dangling over the edge and watch the web sway gently with the breeze. The spider isn't weaving tonight. She's just sitting at the center still, content, or maybe tired. You watch her for a while. No loom, no contest, no drama, just presence. And isn't that enough? Arachne's legacy isn't in her punishment, it's in her persistence. She exists in every quiet act of creation. Every girl who dares to speak plainly. Every weaver who threads meaning into cloth. Every hand that chooses to make rather than to destroy. And now she lives in the shadows of temples, the margins of murals, the corners of rooftops. Not erased, not defeated, just transformed, and somehow more powerful than ever. The stars are shifting now just slightly, as if nudging you toward rest. A gentle hush has fallen over everything thick and comforting. The town is utterly quiet, save for the occasional creak of a shutter or the faint scuff of a cat on a rooftop. You move more slowly now, as if your body understands the story is drawing to a close, even if your mind doesn't want to let go. You cross back through the olive groves. By now, every tree feels familiar, every twist of bark and flick of leaf like an old friend. The moon follows you through the branches, casting long silvery shadows that pool at your feet. Somewhere behind you, a spider lowers herself gracefully from a limb, and you don't even flinch. She's part of the scenery now. You pause in a clearing and look back toward the village. The temple sits high above it, unmoving, lit by faint torchlight. But all around it, tucked in gutters, branches, and forgotten nooks, are glints of web. They catch the moonlight like stars scattered among the stone. A network, a memory, a quiet resistance. And there it is again, that feeling you've carried since you first stepped into Arachne's world. A strange calm, a deep, steady hum, undi, as though the whole myth is still spinning, still evolving, not in grand epics, but in thread, in silk, in story. You find your way back to the olive tree where you first saw her. The original web is still there, fragile, yes, but intact. You crouch beside it, careful not to exhale too hard. She's in the center again, waiting, or watching. You whisper, "I remember you." You think that might be enough. Because this tale, this quiet, complex, looping myth, has never been about conquest. It's been about continuance. Arachne didn't shatter Olympus. She simply endured, reframed herself, kept spinning when the gods moved on. You sit beneath the olive tree, once more leaning against its twisted trunk. Your breath slows. The story weaves itself closed around you like a blanket pulled to the chin. The world narrows to the shape of a single thread winding through darkness. Click, pull, thread, beat. This is what survival sounds like, what creation sounds like, what truth when it's left alone to breathe eventually sounds like. The myths will keep being told, in temple murals and bedtime whispers, in cautionary tales and schoolyard dares. But this version, the one you've walked, watched, felt beneath your feet, this is the one the spiders remember. They'll carry it. You just gotta borrow it for a little while. You rest your head against the tree and close your eyes. The night wraps around you. Somewhere far above, a constellation stirs, maybe Athena's, maybe Arachne's, maybe both. Their story isn't finished, but for now, the loom is still. Word count 1070. Wind down final 300 words. And so here you are, beneath the stars, wrapped in a story that didn't need thunder or armies to leave its mark. Just a girl, a loom, and the quiet insistence of truth. Let your breath slow now. Let your thoughts unwind like thread, soft and smooth, no knots. You're safe beneath the olive tree. The air is cool, the earth is warm, and the gentle clicking of ancient weaving is far off in the distance, soothing like a lullaby hummed by the world itself. If your mind wanders, let it drift along the silk threads, looping gently from one branch to another, carried by a breeze that knows how to hum. The goddess is quiet now. The spider is still. And you've seen the myth from the inside. You've felt it under your feet, on your fingertips, in the web of your own thinking. You don't need to remember every detail. The feeling is enough. Let your shoulders soften. Let your eyes get heavy. Somewhere nearby, a web stretches in the darkness, catching nothing but starlight. And in the very center, a single thread begins again. Sleep now. The story can wait. The weaving will continue. You are held. You are quiet. You are home.